To the point, informative, entertaining, and protecting the Second Amendment. Welcome back to Elfster's Rifles and Reloading. And we have a lot of information to go through, but I'm going to try my best to explain it as fast as possible, but in a manner that your average weekend warrior can understand. I'm going to break this down to 4 parts, and that is going to be purpose, cartridge, trajectory, and preference. And housed within all that, we're going to go over such subjects as first focal plane, or also known as front focal plane, second focal plane, or rear focal plane. We're also going to talk about how to set up your scope before you take those shots, and other things such as minute of angle, mils, and also which scope mount you should use. And if you could, I'd really appreciate it if you could not only subscribe, but like, share, hit that notification button, not only for this channel, Elfster's Rifles and Reloading, but also my B-side channel, Elfster's Minute Americans. And eventually, I am gonna do all this over again, but live, where you and I can chat together on this very subject. And I will have a link in the description box below that will take you to Minute Americans. So make sure you subscribe, like, share, hit that notification at Minute Americans, so when we do go live, you get that notification. So enough of the BS talk. Let's get this going. Now, before we can go over this, especially if you're new to the game, a cartridge, and don't get this confused with a bullet. This is a bullet, this is a cartridge. The cartridge consists of the primer, the casing, which is more times than not brass, sometimes steel, the powder inside or the propellant, and then you have the bullet and the bullet's trajectory. And trying to figure out which optic or scope you prefer to use based on that information. Before we can go over any of that, we need to go over purpose. Now, when it comes down to your optics or trying to figure out what type of scope you want to get, it really is all about purpose. You got to start out with purpose and what you intend on doing with that firearm. You know, for pure example sake, something like this PSA AKV in 9mm, that bullet's trajectory in 9mm is starting to drop like a rock after 100 yards. This PSA AKV in 9mm is great, very soft shooting, easy follow-ups, but it's going to be pretty difficult to shoot this past 100, 150 yards. After about 150 yards, that 9mm bullet, its trajectory is dropping like a rock. And like I proved to you guys in my FM9 video series, which is pretty unconventional to shoot a 9mm at 300 yards. I did shoot it out to 300 yards, the 1:8 power Strike Eagle Vortex scope, but to shoot that 9mm clear out to 300 yards. So I'm literally motoring these 9mm rounds, I believe at about 50 minutes of angle, if not more. So let's give this a shot, and I tell you, walking through 300 yards of snow is pretty tiring. Now that is impressive. Come on. Maybe missed one. I had to use almost 52 minutes of angle on that 1:8 power scope, which is really rare and really unconventional. And when you're looking at something like a PCC in 9mm, more times than not, you're going to be using just the iron sights or a red dot. Now, both of these pistols, these are actually pistols. This is an AR pistol. This is an AK pistol, both 10.5-inch barrels. This, on the other hand, shoots a 5.56 or 223 round, which that bullet's trajectory by far supersedes this 9mm if you are new to the game. You know, that 223 round can easily reach out to 500, 600, maybe even 700 yards. But in this platform, still with that bullet and its reach it's going to be pretty unconventional to put a high power scope on something like this. I still would consider putting something like this, a 1 to 8 power Vortex Strike Eagle on that 223, and I don't see that being an issue, being that it can reach out to 600 yards, but still I think it'd be rather unconventional unless it was more of a carbine situation with a 16-inch barrel, and that's something where something like this would really shine on a 223. Something like my 18-inch Rock River Arms ATH rifle.
5 rounds today, 5 on the 0, 30 on this 6x5. That is awesome, especially for an 18-inch AR with a 1 to 8 power scope. And that wraps up these 100 rounds to prove you guys that consistent reloading and consistent shooting really does pay off.
It's kind of a do-all type of firearm. Not only can you use it for something like coyote hunting, but it makes an excellent, awesome target rifle. It's kind of a hybrid situation for not only punching holes in paper, but you can take it out to a cornfield and go coyote hunting. So once again, it really is all about purpose. Both of these firearms, both shoot 5.56, also 223. This has a wild chamber. This has a NATO 5.56 chamber, but they both shoot the same round. Two totally different sets of purpose. This one here, close quarters, quick follow-ups, but you have the option to reach out to range at 600 yards. On the other hand, something like this, super heavy. This with the optic is pushing about 13, 14 pounds, especially with this 1 inch thick all the way through varmint bull barrel, 20 inches of stainless steel. You know, something like this is perfect as a bench rifle, something you want to punch holes in, bug hole groups in paper.
All right, that's it. 30 shots. Let's go down and see how we did.
I'm going to give my good old Rock River Varmint 223 a whirl.
That's a pretty damn good group there, man.
At 100 to 600-700 yards. And by loading up different types of bullets that have different trajectories, you can even stretch the legs of this even out to 1,000 yards. For pure example's sake, typically, when most people buy 223 ammunition, they're thinking something like this. They're thinking something like a 55 grain full metal jacket with a cantilever. You know, the trajectory on something like this is not that great, but it's a cheap round. And it's something, if you want to just blow off some ammunition in that 10.5 inch 5.56 AR pistol, that would be great with a red dot. But if I wanted to, I could reload this, a much bigger, larger, not larger, but longer bullet, same diameter, but this is 75 grains compared to 55 grains. These can both be shot out of the same barrel. And if I load the powder hot enough, this 75 grain boat tail hollow point could reach clear out to 1,000 yards, no problems, where this 55 grain could not. And it really is all about purpose when you're looking at your firearm and the optics for that firearm. Now, while I have both of these firearms out, this would be a great time to go over barrel twist rates. I want to quick get that out of the way. What is barrel twist rate, especially if you're new to the game? Well, for pure example's sake, this 5.56 10.5 inch AR pistol has a 1 in 7 twist rate on the barrel. Now, what does that mean? Well, for every 7 inches of barrel, that bullet is going to make 1 full revolution. On the other hand, this 20-inch varmint bull barrel, has a 1 1/8 twist. So for every 8 inches of barrel, that bullet is going to make 1 full revolution. You know, you can get 5.56 or 223 ARs and numerous twist rates. More times than not, they range from 1 and 7 up to 1 and 9. But it is all about the weight of the bullet. And more times than not, when you got a heavier bullet, it will usually prefer a faster twist rate. Now, you're probably asking me, if you're new, which is faster, a 1 and 7 or a 1 and 9 twist rate? Well, it kind of goes against logic, but a 1 and 7 twist rate is actually a faster twist rate than a 1 and 9. And why is that? Well, it's making 1 full revolution in 7 inches of barrel and not 9. And the lower the number, the faster the twist rate. The lower the number, the faster the twist. You usually prefer a heavier bullet. Something like a 55 grain might actually prefer something more like a 1 and 8 or a 1 and 9 twist rate in order to stabilize that bullet. Now, with that said, short barrel firearms, something like this 1 and 10, I'm sorry, this 10.5 inch AR pistol, which has a 1 and 7 twist, you would think with a short barrel rifle with a 1 and 7 twist like that, it would prefer a heavier, faster twist rate with a heavier bullet. But I found out that that is not the case. I actually started load development with this, and if you go back to the series on this PSA 10.5 inch 5.56 AR pistol, I actually started load development with 75 grain and 68 grain bullets, thinking that it would prefer a heavier bullet with a 1 and 7 twist, which that was not the case. Wow, what a noticeable difference between the 55 grain VMAX and the 60 grain VMAX. You can tell right out of the gate, just totally disregarding powder drops, that this gun definitely likes 55 grain over the 60 grain, which makes no sense with a 1 and 7 twist barrel. I would say, you know, best group here, and it's gonna be hard till I get home and I can measure these, but gosh, you know, it's right here between a 25, 24. I don't think it really matters. So I think I might be on to something here, which goes against all logic with a 1 and 7 twist barrel. But before I shoot these 55 grain full metal jet spotter bullets, we're gonna quick confirm this 75 grain. So let's quick shoot this 75 grain, see how she goes. Now, does that make any sense whatsoever? That it doesn't. You would think with a 1 and 7 twist, these 75 grains would be destroying the 55 grain VMAXs, which they don't. I mean, it's unbelievable and goes against all logic. And I got a feeling it has something to do with the short barrel length. Because of that shorter barrel, only 10.5 inches, it's, you know, at 7 inches, it's making 1 full revolution, and it doesn't have much barrel left after that to even make another full revolutions. It hasn't even made 2 full revolutions out of this firearm. And what I found out was that this particular firearm actually preferred to shoot 55 grain and 60 grain VMAX. Actually, the 55 grain VMAX came out on top, which goes against all logic, and that is completely because of its short barrel. This 10.5 inch barrel doesn't have enough barrel length to stabilize a heavy bullet, and it actually prefers a lighter bullet, something like a 55 grain VMAX, which came out way out on top over the 75 grain, which goes against pure logic But you can go back and watch the video series on this particular firearm, and it shows 100% that that is the case. Now, on the other hand, something like this with a much longer barrel, 20 inches, you know, this has a 1 1/8 twist. So at 8 inches, it's one full revolution. Another 8 inches at 16 inches, it makes another revolution. And you're almost getting 3 full revolutions on that bullet, on obviously this 20-inch barrel. So something like this with a 1 1/8 twist can shoot a wide variety of bullets, a full spectrum of different grain weight bullets, from something like this 55 grain all the way up to 75 grain. And because of its longer barrel, it has more opportunity to stabilize that bullet and make that round even more accurate. And if you don't believe me, check out the video series. I think it's well over 6 parts on this PSA 10.5 inch 5.56 AR pistol. And if you don't believe me and you think I'm wrong, check that out. So with all that said, in regards to the 223 or 5.56, you know, if I get a heavy enough bullet, 75 grain bolt tail hollow point for pure example, and I play with load development and I get close to max powder drop loads, I can obviously reach out to 1,000 yards and beyond, but I'm going to start hitting that transonic range where the bullet goes from supersonic to subsonic, and that bullet is going to start to lose its stability and accuracy. So realistically, when it comes to this particular firearm in 5.56 or 223, you're really starting to stretch the legs and max out at about 800-900 yards. Now, on the other hand, a very popular round is the 308. You know, the 308 can easily go past 1,000 yards, but right around about 1,000 yards, if you're reloading and you're getting a heavy enough bullet with a hot enough powder charge, you're going to start going transonic from supersonic to subsonic, and that bullet's going to start losing its stability and accuracy right at about 1,000 yards. Now, this is geared more towards those that are new to the game, and I'm just waiting for these comments from you veteran reloaders. I reload super hot with this heavy of a bullet, and I can do this, that, the other. Yeah, I get it. You can reach out to whatever yardage and accurately, but in the general scope of things, that is what you're looking at for roughly a 223 and 308. Now, with that said, let's move on to the 6.5 Creedmoor. Now, this is my crown jewel. This is a custom-made Mega Ma 10 billet lower and upper. This has a 22-inch Krieger heavy stainless barrel with a blended brake and a Cyric Ordnance adjustable gas block with an over 2-inch rifle length gas tube. So it's a little bit longer than a standard rifle length gas tube. This has a JP low mass bolt carrier group with a Norgon ambidextrous controls and a Seekings ambidextrous safety and magazine release. Geisley SSAE trigger, which is pretty much the best trigger you can get, say, other than maybe a Hyperfire. JP silent capture system on the buffer and the buffer tube, springs with adjustable tune springs, and this is the PRS Magpul buttstock, and this has all the bells and whistles for the 6.5 Creedmoor AR rifle. Now, this is easily a 1 mile rifle. This can easily go out to 1,800 yards. Obviously, 1 mile is 1,760 yards. And because of that, with its extended ranges, and it's got quite a bit of drop, even for a 6.5 Creedmoor, I do have a special mount that has an extra 20 minutes of angle built into the scope mount itself, which puts the scope a slightly downward pitch, so I have to increase the trajectory a little bit more, which saves me 20 minutes of angle on the elevation turret, which I'm about to go over that in a little bit here. But the 6.5 Creedmoor is obviously a by far superior round in comparison to that 308. You know, I really do like my 6.5 and 6mm pills or bullets. I think they are by far a better bullet coefficient if you're new to the game, and they will easily reach out to 1 mile. But you need to play around with those scope mounts or scope bases and add some extra minutes of angle to your optic setup to reach those distances. I hope that helps you out, especially if you're new to the game, and especially if you're thinking about getting into reloading. You know, it's just a brief overview of purpose, cartridge, and trajectory of some of the most popular cartridges today with a 9mm, 223, 308, and 6.5 Creedmoor. And the other thing after that is once you figure out the purpose and the trajectory of that bullet, would be to figure out the preference or the type of scope or optic you want to put on that firearm.